Have you ever stopped to think about the rules we use to run the entire world? I mean, it sounds like a massive question, right? But it really boils down to this. For centuries, we've had a political map for how things are supposed to work. But what happens when that map is ancient and the world it's supposed to guide us through has totally, completely changed? Okay, let's get into it. And this, right here, is the central question for us today. I mean, we live in a world of instant everything. Communication, global markets, shared crises that hit us all at once. But the rulebook we're using, it was written for a totally different era. It feels like we're trying to navigate a superhighway with a map from the horse and buggy days. And that disconnect, well, it's becoming impossible to ignore. So, to really understand this mismatch, we first need to look at the territory itself, our modern, hyper-connected world. You know, the defining feature of our time is that our biggest, scariest problems simply don't care about the lines we've drawn on a map. Just take a look at this list. Climate change, pandemics, cyber attacks. This stuff should feel incredibly familiar, right? These are what some people call problems without passports. They are global by their very nature. But our political toolkit for dealing with them, it's still overwhelmingly national. And that right there, that's the fundamental tension we're all living with. Okay, so let's talk about that old map. For hundreds of years, the entire international system has been built around one single powerful idea, the nation-state. This has been the universal framework, the default setting for how we organize power and people on this planet. At its heart, the nation-state is all about control within a specific, defined territory. The government has the final say on the laws, it's got the power to enforce them, and it deals with its citizens directly. For a very, very long time, this model brought a sense of order and structure to a chaotic world. So what are the building blocks of this thing? Let's just quickly walk through the key pillars. First, you need a clear territory with a single sovereign authority. That authority has a complete monopoly on making the laws and also on coercion, the use of force. It establishes direct rule over its citizens, and its power is considered fair because the people are the source of its legitimacy. And in theory, it governs a pretty homogeneous citizenry. For centuries, these 7 pillars seemed absolutely unshakable. But what happens when those pillars start to crack? We are now living through a period of really deep uncertainty, where that old model of the all-powerful nation-state is being challenged from pretty much every direction. The map, you guys, just doesn't fit the territory anymore. This slide really just lays it all out, doesn't it? On the left, you've got the old promise of the nation-state. It controlled its economy, it was the highest authority, and its borders meant everything. But now look at the right. That's our new reality. The economy is global, it's way beyond the control of any single state. You've got global institutions like the UN and the EU that hold serious power. And technology, it's made borders leaky, porous, maybe even irrelevant in some cases. So the takeaway here is crucial. We're moving away from a world dominated by just 1 or 2 powerful countries. We're entering what some call a multipolar system, where power is spread out a lot more, and where new players who aren't even countries, think giant corporations or activist groups, are becoming incredibly influential. And this brings us to the attempts to draw a new map, a new rulebook for our borderless world. This whole effort is broadly known as global governance, and it's basically about how we manage our shared problems when there isn't a single world government to call the shots. Now, let's be super clear about one thing. Global governance is not a world government, not even close. It's a messy, complex, often chaotic combination of rules, norms, and organizations that allows all the different players on the world stage to try and work together on those problems without passports we talked about earlier. And just look at who those players are now. It's not just states anymore. We have powerful IGOs like the UN, super influential NGOs, massive transnational corporations that are wealthier than many countries, and yeah, even individuals who can shape global conversations from their keyboards. The world stage is a lot more crowded and complicated than it used to be. So how in the world do you make rules for a stage like that? It kind of helps to think in 2 different categories. We're all familiar with national law, right? That governs individuals like you and me inside a country. But then there's international law, which is supposed to govern the relationships between countries. And the key difference is enforcement. There's no global police force to arrest a country. It all relies on treaties, customs, and a whole lot of state-to-state diplomacy. But here's the most critical, most difficult part of our story. Even as we're trying our best to draw this new map of global governance, we have to ask ourselves a really tough question. Are we just tracing the same old lines of power and inequality? This quote from Lisandro Claudio just hits the nail on the head. It's a powerful reminder that historical power imbalances don't just magically disappear. The wealthy, powerful parts of the world, well, they still largely get to define the rules for everyone else. And that creates a deep, persistent global divide. This is what we call the global divide. And it's not strictly a geographic line you can find on a map. It's an economic one. It separates the developed, wealthy countries of the global north from the struggling, developing nations of the global south. It's really just a modern term for an age-old hierarchy based on wealth and power. And this data from the World Bank shows you the sheer scale of that divide. You can see there are 87 high-income countries. Then you've got 54 in that upper middle tier. But just look at that third bar. A staggering 75 countries fall into the low and lower middle income categories. They're all living in a vastly different economic reality. This table makes it even more real. A high-income country has a gross national income per person of over almost $14,000. But for a low-income country, that figure is less than $1,200 a year. When you see examples like the US and Japan on one end and Ethiopia and Afghanistan on the other, you realize this isn't just data. We're talking about vastly different qualities of life, of opportunity, of everything. So we end up right back where we began with that big question. Technology and global challenges are forcing us, pushing us, to create a new rulebook for the world. But is this new system of global governance actually creating a truly more equitable, more connected planet? Or are we just using new tools and new language to draw the same old lines that have divided the powerful from the powerless for centuries? That's something really worth thinking about.